Are you looking to level up your author business?
Are you pounding your head against a wall, wondering what your next step should be? Then join me, Daniel Wilcox.
And me, Sacha Black, as we haul ass each week in a bid to level up.
Level up!
Come along for the ride as we delve deep into the business of writing,
craft,
entrepreneurship,
and every level of the author journey. This is the Next Level Author Podcast.
Hello, Achievers. This is episode 73 of the Next Level Author Podcast, a podcast where we hold each other to account and track our step-by-step progress as we level up our author business. My name is Sacha Black, and usually here with me every week is Daniel Wilcox, but Daniel's son has trotted off on his jollies for a break this week. So joining me this week is the very lovely, do you want to say your name?
Katlyn Duncan. Hi.
Hello. So Katlyn is a YouTuber. She's an author of fiction and she's about to be an author of nonfiction. But would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I am a hybrid author. So I started off with traditional publishing with the digital first imprint of Harlequin way back in 2013, which is now with HarperCollins. And this year is the first year that I'm self-publishing, as I have received the book rights back for my debut series. And I'm loving this process and I'm going to move forward, I think, more in that indie space, thanks to Sacha and Dan and all of their infinite wisdom.
Stop. So how has your week been? Normally I would ask Dan this question, but obviously he's had a very good week. I've seen some of his, well, you've seen some of the photos too. For listeners, Katlyn is like one of my very, very good friends, one of Dan's good friends. And so it was natural to ask you on the show. So yeah, we've both seen some of the photos of Dan on his jollies, smiling giddily at us at the top of mountains. But how's your week been?
Good. Okay. I'm just thinking about Dan and having such a great time while we're stuck at home, but he definitely deserves it. This week has been okay. It's a bit of a double-edged sword. I am a mother and my child has been away for most of the week. And I so conveniently caught the cold that she has bestowed upon me. So you could still hear it in my voice. So this week has pretty much been me in recovery mode. And just, I do work a day job as well, on top of writing. So it's just been a recovery week for me overall, but it's been okay.
Yeah. And at least I suppose hopefully a faster recovery because you only have to mostly only have to look after yourself this week.
Yes.
Awesome. My week has been interesting, very similar to yours because Atlas went to my mum's at 11 o'clock Tuesday and it's now just gone 11 o'clock Friday. So I have had most of the week without him. And I thought I was going to get more done than I did. It's one of these things that where usually when your kid goes off, you just actually need the recovery time rather than trying to smash all of the work. I always forget that is the case. He's also going to be going to my mum's next week. So I'm hoping I will sort of be able to pick up the pace a bit next week. I'm not sure if he's coming back midweek for the evenings because he's got to stay one day at the weekend. But it's been odd. I've sort of gone back to the fiction writing, which has been savage on every shade of every experience, every way you can possibly think of. But yeah, I've really, anyway, that's enough waffling on. It's been a weird week. I
know. No, but I mean, to be honest, this is not something that a lot of people really put out there, especially parents, who are doing a creative endeavor and a job. It's not when we were younger and childless, when you have a day off and you're like, oh, I can go clean my apartment or I can do this, I can do that. We have such high expectations of any childless time, whether they're at school or, with the grandparents or whatever. We dropped her off Sunday and all Monday I was like, what do I do? Like I had all this, I'm gonna clean my mud room. I'm gonna clean up the kids' room. I'm gonna do all this. And I cleaned the mud room. I did that one thing in 5 days. And it's very odd because it's just, I don't even know how to describe it, but I feel like it happens to a lot of parents. And it's crazy how that works. Like you just need that like extra motivation, where before your motivation was, okay, I have 4 hours where, my child is having dinner at the grandparents' house and I have to get all of this stuff done. But when it's such like a long amount of time, I don't know if it gives you like less of a deadline to get a lot of things done. I don't know. I think of it in like writing terms.
Yeah. I also think that we forget that we're not actually machines, and that our bodies do actually require, I know, right? But our bodies do require some time to rest and recuperate. Yeah. And so I think they try to sabotage us and slow us down in those times. I don't know. Like, yeah, I do always set unrealistic expectations, just because that is how I'm wired. I'm wired to do that. So no matter how much time I have, I'm always going to find more things to do than I can possibly achieve in those hours. But yeah. Okay. So level up of the week this week is Sam Ross. So Sam says, I'm having a draft 2 table read for my scripts tomorrow, meaning as of tomorrow, I have crushed my level up challenge. So huge congratulations to Sam. And if you haven't joined our level up challenge, this one is running for this quarter. So I think it ends at the end of September. God, I need to write it down. I still need to contact, organize a time for the session for the previous one. I need to write that down. So yeah, join us, I think by the end of September, I think this level up is, I can't remember. If Dan was here, I'm sure he would remember. He wrote the post. Shows how useless I am. Yes, so huge congratulations. That sounds awesome. If it's a table read in what I think of a table read, like where you read the thing before it gets filmed or whatever, that is super cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we have one new patron this week. Welcome to Mel Climo or Climo? I'm not sure. Climo, I'm going to go with. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know Dan does. And you can join us for our evening sessions once a month, where we do a next level author patron Q&A. We have a nice chat. We all ask questions, answer questions, all of that good stuff. And if you would like to join us on Patreon, then you can by visiting patreon.com/nextlevelauthors. So this is the point in the show where we usually do some notices. So I think you should tell everyone about your upcoming book.
What? It's very strange. Like, this doesn't feel like any other launch that I've had before, but I am releasing my first nonfiction book, Take Back Your Book, an author's guide to rights reversion and publishing on your terms. This was a book based on my own rights reversion journey, as I mentioned earlier. When I first got my book rights back, I had no idea what to do. I knew I wanted to self-publish the book, but I never self-published before. And there's a little bit of a nuance when it comes to republishing a book that's already been published. And I go through that a lot in this book. It's basically like half memoir, half nonfiction self-help, in terms of, like, if you are an author who is traditionally published and you're looking to learn more about rights reversion, taking back your book rights after a certain amount of time, usually when you're not making a lot of money or you're not selling a lot of books years after publication, there is hope for your book still. And also this is for authors who are considering traditional publishing. This book was sort of born out of a lot of the Twitter drama over the past year or so when it comes to sort of peeling back the layers of traditional publishing and really just making authors aware of what happens behind the scenes. This is no way a dig at traditional publishers. I think they do have their place, but I also think that authors can take control over their careers when other people are not necessarily promoting your book the way you want. So yeah, so this comes out next Thursday, the 26th of August, 2021, and I'm thrilled. I'm a bit nervous, and I just feel like I won't really hit me until the day comes, because it's just been such a whirlwind process. I think we had discussed this March, April. I think I started working on it then, and it's just been crazy. And I want to thank you, Sacha and Dan too. You guys were some early readers of mine, and you really helped shape the book. I'm almost embarrassed to think of the version that I sent you guys because this book doesn't look anything like that anymore. And you guys really helped shape that. So thank you.
Oh, no, it was all there. All the content was there. And I always say, like, the hardest bit for me in my nonfiction books is the structure. And so that is always the thing that I struggle with most. So yeah, like I have read the book. I think it is amazing. I learned stuff from it. And I think anybody, like you said, who is either traditionally published already, considering traditional publishing, or considering subsidiary, it's easy for me to say, subsidiary rights sales, should read the book, because you will get something from it. And hey, if you are just a person who likes information, you should read the book, because it is packed full of tips, tricks, information, clauses to look out for. It was just fascinating. As somebody who is obsessed with this industry, I found it fascinating from that perspective. You have like to-dos and like check things to make sure you do, and case studies in there from real authors who have had their rights reverted. And so it's just fascinating.
And there was really nothing like it out there. Like, I did want to mention, like, there was, articles about rights reversion, and you can find those anywhere on Google, but there was like really nothing to do like afterwards. And, as you mentioned, the case studies. So these are more like success stories, and people who have been reverted, but I had to actively seek those people out. Because there was nothing out there. And I was wondering if I was doing something wrong, that like, if this was something secret, but it's just that no one's ever like taken, their platform to be able to talk about it. And then I was thinking, when you were saying you were reading it, like some of the comments you had, I do have a story in here, a not successful story. And it's very heartbreaking for an author to try so hard. The lovely Terry Nixon, she wrote all about her struggles with trying to get her books back, because our publisher was not really, figuring it out. They were saying they were going to do stuff to help promote the books, and they did not. And it's just heartbreaking. But I hope that authors are able to find themselves in either my story or someone else's story. And I also have a mix of hybrid authors in there who are being very successful now because they took their book rights back. So
yeah, awesome. So as for me, same old. All my books are available wide, and of course the most recent release is 8 Steps to Side Characters. If you haven't got your copy yet, what are you waiting for? There's lots of stuff in there that you might not expect, that will help you to improve all of your characters. So I highly recommend you go and check that out. Okay, thing of the week that we have enjoyed. What have you enjoyed this week?
As we were talking before, this is a bit of a double-edged sword, because I love my child with all of my heart, but having the space has really been great. I somewhat have taken back my time a little bit. Like, I'm not so hard with like, have to drop off at camp, have to pick up at camp, have to do dinner, have to do bath, have to do bedtime type of thing. I really enjoyed like just having my time. It's taken up by work and authoring, which I love, but I really enjoyed just being, childless. It just sounds so horrible, Sacha.
It doesn't,
But,
because I completely understand. Like, I am so excited for him to come back, but also like, I'm tired 99.9% of the time. And this is the 0.1% or the 0.001% or whatever it is. So like, we are allowed to enjoy this time, like just as much as we enjoy time with our children. Like, that is okay. What have I enjoyed this week? I had a coaching session where, in fact, I'm gonna give 2 things. So the first thing, I ranted on Instagram yesterday because, as you know, I have been working on the third book in my young adult series for 3 fucking years. And I just am at the point where it is make or break. And I really want it to be make and not break, because I don't like quitting. The competition in me does not like quitting. But I really can't do this anymore. And yesterday I sat for 3 hours, 3 fucking hours, staring at the computer, trying to work out how to make this work and just thinking. And I intellection cycled without making forward progress. And I was not okay with that by the time at the end of that 3 hours. And so I ranted on Instagram, and the very lovely JP offered to do a brainstorming session. And JP has very high, I think he's number 1 ideation, and ideation is like my favorite thing now. Like, I so wish I had ideation. I know strategic can sometimes act like that, but it failed me in this situation. Anyway, and his ideation is fucking phenomenal. Like, it is genuinely a superpower. And like, I just vomited the story plots and was like, this is where I am. I don't know how to move forward. And we just like, anyway, he got me out of the situation that I was in. And because it was a shit situation. Anyway, I am so deeply grateful. And I don't think he realizes quite how grateful I am, because I said it like 8,000 times, but you know, when you cannot quantify your gratitude, it was that kind of a situation. So yeah, I am hoping now that, because I won't get to write today, but I'm hoping next week I can really start to just, get that book done. So that was the first thing that I really enjoyed. And the second thing I really enjoyed was a coaching session, Becca Symes Clifton coaching. And I had the session with Ellie, and she is just, if she's not an actual genius, she must be a genius, because
she's amazing.
She is almost frighteningly amazing. And like, she just knew exactly how to say the right thing. And I know, like, I'm going to confess this, like, I do say that I'm dead on the inside, but like, when somebody hits upon a home truth that you were not expecting them to hit upon, that really cuts to the core of your values or the core of your personality or whatever, it provokes a physical reaction. Like, I don't think that we can help when somebody really cuts deep, it does provoke an instantaneous physical reaction. It's like a physical manifestation of how you're feeling. And I instantly got goosebumps, and then I started crying, because she nailed it. And it's like this thing I've been struggling with for 3 years. And yeah, like, I don't know. Anyway, so I feel empowered again, which is really good. And so yeah, now next week we're going to see what happens with the fiction, and hopefully I'm gonna, like, I can just smash and things. So that, yeah, those were the 2 things that I enjoyed this week.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so weekly confessional, not so relevant for you. Dan will enjoy downtime in the Lake District, which he's doing. And Sacha will create a no list and make a decision about which drafting project comes next. So I did my no list. I think I've got it here somewhere. I sent a picture to Dan anyway. I can't find it right now. So funnily enough, I made a decision that I was going to draft a non-fiction one, and I started, and then I was like, no, I haven't done the input, so I had to stop, and now I'm drafting The Scent of Death, which, you know, and I've written a few thousand words on that this week. So yeah, I mean, it's not really what I intended to do. I don't really want to be drafting and editing 2 different fiction projects. It's not really comfortable for me, but that's where I am. And I am determined to keep going with this trying to write every day thing until the end of September, but I already feel uncomfortable. Yeah, so I don't know how that is going to go. So the reason I feel uncomfortable is because it's not taking me 2 hours to do what I need to do. It's taking me significantly longer. And I'm still like, I'm not timing the 2 hours, which is not helping me. And I'm not in the school routine. So yeah, I don't know. I might actually try a visual timer. Like that is, are they actually called visual timers?
I think so. Like this is the one that I have.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and it has like a little thing at the end.
Which I'm going to write it down.
You hear it now.
Yes. I'm going to Google, I'm going to have a look on Amazon because yeah, I found this week, like in my mornings where I'm supposed to be writing, because I spend most of my day in sprints with people. I can't, like, I'm not focused first thing in the morning. Yeah. And I need that focus and also I'm already feeling like I've outputted everything I have. So yeah, I really need to readjust and like go back to reading more, I think, in order to keep myself going. I don't know. Anyway. So yeah, I did do both of those things. All right. Comments. Yeah. And then on to question of the week. So comments. So last week's question was, how do you protect your writing time? Kerry Hardisky says, I just communicate clearly with hubby. We worked out a routine where he takes over childcare and bedtime duties after dinner. I did agree to 1 night off a week, but I'm usually still writing on my phone. Victoria LK Williams said, I tell the hubby I'll be in the office. That's code for don't bother me, and have a serious discussion with the 2 cats about boundaries. Hubby listens, the cats don't. Shane W. Miller said, with a closed door and the nearest available weapon. That's hilarious. Inez Johnson says, I get up before everyone else and get them words. She is a machine. Like, I look up to her. I want to be her when I get older because her output is crazy. CJ Dainton says, boundaries, planning, and intentionality. I fail at all of them on the regular. Dust myself off and try again. Edwin said, not as well as I should, even on days when my wife kicks me out of the house with orders to go right. I struggle with putting distractions aside and focusing on the actual writing. Kate Holdsworth says, I have to put it on first or my achiever will have me using energy pennies on the nothingy jobs just to tick something off the list. Yep, feel that. Sometimes I have to show up and just start, even if my head is empty. I am the guardian of my creativity, its curator and its voice, nobody else. Me, if I don't feed the Tamagotchi, it will die. Did you ever? You're the same age as you. You must have known.
Yeah.
Did you have?
Oh yeah, I had him. I had him. Yeah.
I had a little red Tamagotchi.
There was a Gigapet too. I remember I had them on like a keychain, both of them. I'm like, I take care of them.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Okay, so I think that is all of the comments. So on with the question. So this question is mostly a you question because I thought, why not ask you something about your specialism? But how do you revert your rights? Let's say you want to revert your rights. How do you revert your book rights? What should you look out for? Talk to us about reverting your book rights.
Absolutely. So it really just starts off with the contract. And, as I state in the book, like, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't recommend anyone taking this as lawyerly advice. But if you say you're already in a contract, look to the contract. If you have a contract but haven't signed it yet, I would recommend talking to a lawyer or an agent. If you have an agent, I've never had an agent, so I always think like lawyerly, but obviously your agent, will be able to assist you in that way. But basically just look at your rights, the right of reversion clause, and see, what the stipulations are. So I've had 4 contracts and they've all been different. So basically in there, it'll state like a time limit of when you can ask for your rights reversion. So say 7 years after publication day of said book that you signed the contract for. And then it'll say, usually it's a unit-based or monetary based threshold. So it'll say, after 7 years or 7 years after publication date, you need to be making less than say $100 in the last 4 royalty periods, or in terms of the units, less than 250 units in the last 2 royalty periods. Some people, like on my earlier contracts, a royalty period means every quarter. So 1 quarter is a royalty period. My later contracts, I get royalty statements monthly. So that would be, 4 months previous. So you have to look at that. And then once you have fulfilled all of those stipulations, you do have the right to ask for your rights back, with a caveat. And some agents I know do this, where it'll be, maybe halfway through that period since publication date, and they'll see that the publisher isn't, say, doing anything with audiobook rights. So they'll specifically ask for those ones back, even if you're not within all, the thresholds or whatever. Like, say they haven't even produced the audiobook, or the audiobook isn't selling, you can ask for that back and then publish it yourself. Sometimes with subsidiary rights, and don't quote me, but sometimes you can bring them to another publisher, but usually I wouldn't recommend once you take a book back that you bring it to another publisher, because there is a sales record out there on it, and a lot of publishers don't want to take that on. And also too, if you are asking for your book rights back, like, in their eyes, you've quote unquote failed, like, because you haven't sold a certain amount. And that varies widely with publishers, what is considered a failure as an author, which is a whole nother book in itself. So yeah, I would recommend looking at the contract and trying to be within those thresholds. That's your best chance of getting them to say yes to get your book rights back.
And so what have you done since you got your book rights back? What have you done with your books? What are the opportunities and options for authors?
Yeah, so when I got my book rights back, I asked for the production files, and that was something in my contract. I don't know if all contracts say that, but you can request the production files, which is basically like,
oh yeah,
so yeah, they're basically like the formatted book. So you can ask for those files. It was a little bit of an obscene amount of money for my taste, because I was asking, I don't know if did I mention I got the whole series back? I asked for the first book. They ended up giving me the whole series, which was awesome. And I'm so happy about that. So for the production files, the amount was more than I ever made on one of the books. So I was like, I'd rather take this money and spend it like with editing and things like that. Plus, it had been over 7 years since the book's published. So I was like, I need to do a lot of rewrites and everything like that. So I didn't, get those back. So I did have to do a lot of editing. With the first book, I'd say maybe like a minor edit. I did like a developmental edit, and proofread and stuff like that. And I formatted the book myself. So I basically took the book and I went through the whole self-publishing process. So I did what you would do, with your fiction book after writing it. So it's like that stopgap after the writing stage, and then everything else was self-publishing. So editing covers, I would recommend getting a new cover, especially if it's been many, many years, as cover trends do change. Some publishers may, you have the opportunity to ask for the cover if you really, really love it. But again, it may be a cost, like the production files. So just keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. And so are there like any mistakes writers should avoid when requesting their rights? Let's start there, because then I have a question about subsidiary rights.
Yeah, absolutely. So mistakes, I would say, is if you're not within that threshold period. Like, I made this mistake and I go into it in my book, and I was, a baby writer, and it's fine. We all make these mistakes. And my thing about this book specifically is that I don't mind airing this out there, because I can guarantee someone else has done this before, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, that was a mistake. But by opening up and telling people about it, maybe that you won't make that mistake and feel a little bit embarrassed. So what I did with one of my books is that it was an absolute failure, and it still is a failure. And I just want to get this book back so badly. So I asked way too soon for my book rights back. And in that contract, I believe it was 7 years after publication that I could request. And I think I asked at like year 3. I was like, can I please have these back? And they're like, no, you're not even close. So I would say just make sure you're within those rights. That's the best chance that you have to be able to get them back, because you have the evidence. It's been 7 years. I haven't sold this many copies. Please give me my rights back. And most of the time with the traditional model of publishing, it's a lot of like front list. So it's like basically the books that are coming out this season, they're really, really, really focused on that. And then after that season, it's like, what's the next season? What's the next season? And like authors have all of these books in their backlist. A lot of publishers don't even bother like putting them on sales, doing any sort of marketing or anything like that after your season is done, which is the total opposite in the indie world, which I love, because like when you put out a book, like you want it to sell forever. You want to constantly find new readers. So yeah, I went on a tangent there.
No, I completely agree. It's what I love about indie too. You know, like I am going into I was also gonna go off on a tangent, but anyway, the point is, you know, I published my first villains book 4 years ago. I'm just about to release the audio. I'm gonna give it a whole boost, campaign and all of this stuff, and it still sells every day. It's crazy that publishers don't bother with their back catalog. That's where like the majority of my sales come from.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I have a question. I have a foreign rights publisher who has approached me for translation rights to a particular country. I won't go into details because I don't even know if this is going to happen. It might all fall through, and probably will fall through, because these things that, it's very rare these things happen. So, but anyway, I've been approached by a publisher of foreign rights. What should I look out for in contracts? Like, what are some of the mistakes with selling subsidiary rights? What are some of the things you need to make sure you're protecting yourself with? Like what should I look for?
Well, in terms, like I said, I'm not a literary lawyer by any stretch of the means, but in terms of subsidiary rights, I mean, that's really up to you. You have to make sure that when you do sign that contract and give away your rights, that, try to get as much benefit for you as you can, because these contracts, they're really not made for you. Yes, they're getting your book out there, but a publishing house is a business and they're going to be protecting themselves. So, in any of the contracts that I've negotiated, because I had hired a literary lawyer and these were recommendations, but they didn't negotiate for me, I did. So basically, like, you can ask up front, like, okay, I see you want audiobook rights. What are your plans for audiobooks? Are you going to have them out, in the next 5 years? What's happening with that? And that's a lot of things you can do up front. Say you're really interested in special editions. I know Brandon Sanderson, he didn't have special editions, I believe, in his contracts. And then what did he make? Like $6 million off his special editions? Like, that is boss. That is so awesome. So these are things you just have to look for up front. And it's, when you're given a contract, it's like excitement and, you want to get your book out there and everything, but you do have to put on like a protective armor and say, like, this is what I'm willing to negotiate and this is what I'm not. And as I'm headed into the indie sphere and like, talking to you, I'm very protective of my rights now. And I think, with you in the translation, you have to make sure it works for you. Like, you have to make sure you're comfortable, letting them have these rights and everything like that. So just in terms of sub rights, I would just make sure, like, question the publisher or your editor, whoever's giving the contract, and, make sure that you feel comfortable and with the terms. And sometimes these specific clauses can be negotiated. So maybe they say, okay, we're not going to revert possibly for 7 years. We'll say, well, maybe how about we move that to 3 or 5 or something like that. Like there's always wiggle room. And then you have to decide what you're willing to take and what you're not. And if you do have to walk away from a contract, you might have to walk away from a contract. So, you know.
That's one thing my dad always says to me is always, always, always be willing to walk away. He was like, you've lost. If you don't go in willing to walk away, you've lost already.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is fantastic advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add about rights reversion before we create the audience question of the week?
Not really. I mean, there's a lot of nuances to it. And just like I said, just please do your due diligence with these contracts. You know, I signed 2 of them before I really started to feel like I needed to be a little more in control of the situation. And I got a lot of no's when I was, you know, trying to negotiate stuff. And then I'm like, well, okay. You know, like your dad said, I mean, like, be prepared to walk away if it's not what you want. Like, you know, obviously if you were given a contract, there's something there about your book, and, you know, you just have to decide what you want to do with it.
Okay. So, the next thing we normally do is say how we are leveling up our business. And I did not pre-plan.
You want me to say what I'm going to do while you think about it?
Yeah.
So I was trying to think of something because I'm like, I don't know if you're going to come at me if I don't do this, but I put what I knew I'm going to do. So I'm going to release this book next week. So I have a whole, you know, checklist of things that I need to be doing. I'm hopefully going to do a release day vlog, which I like to do for my books. And it's usually just that day. And then I'll put it up, you know, the next week on my YouTube channel, if that's something that interests anyone. And I'm also trying to, like, I'm going to need a little space away from it because I get very focused on my releases. So I'm going to work on my exclusive epilogue for the book I'm releasing next month in September. It's a fiction novel. It's my first reverted book of that series. So I'm re-releasing it next month. So I'm going to work on an epilogue, which will be sort of for the readers who read Soul Taken, just a little extra to hold them over until the second book, Soul Possessed, is out.
Awesome. I am going to just put one thing on my list, which is to work on the Trey edits. That is like so I had planned on doing the audiobook, finishing the audiobook this week, but we have had super fast fiber optic being installed in our whole town, and they worked from the other side of the town, and they just came over to this side of the town, and they spent this whole week up until about lunchtime yesterday, like drilling around our street. Like they were on our street this week. So like I've been deeply grateful because I'm so excited to like have fast internet again, because we went from, I think it was 360 meg download to like 50 here. And wow. I like, yeah, like, no, I was like, the fuck is this? Like buffering? Who buffers?
What is that?
I know, right? Like we had like super fast internet before we moved, just because we were close to London. Yeah, so I am like deeply grateful, but it completely fucked my plans. So I am hoping that I'm gonna finish the audiobook, but I don't know where they're gonna be working. So I am not gonna put that down just in case they are like over here, which will still affect my audio booth. But anyway, hopefully I will be able to do the audiobook as well. But the thing I'm gonna put down is Trey, because I know I can work on that. Yeah, and also I'm going to put that down because I think by next week, the end of next week, I'm going to have to make a decision about whether or not I'm putting it up for pre-order for our big campaign thing that's going to happen in September. So do I put that down as well? No, I'm going to put that down for next week, I think. Okay, cool. So that's it. So audience question of the week then is, have you sold any subsidiary rights, or would you consider, maybe we should put, would you consider selling subsidiary rights or selling book rights? Oh my God. I'm going to sort it out in post. And yeah, thank you so much for your time today. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, you are most welcome. I love your fashion sense, by the way. Your t-shirt's amazing. Yeah, for listeners, Katlyn is wearing a Next Level Author t-shirt. So yeah, don't forget to get your copy of Take Back Your Book Rights. It is a fantastic read. I highly recommend it. Yeah, and I will see you guys next week. That's it. Bye.
Hungry for more?
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can hear more of my angelic accent and Dan's dulcet tones on our other podcasts.
For more of me, check out the Great Writers Share podcast.
For more of me, listen to the Rebel Author podcast. We'll be back next week holding each other to account as Dan
and Sacha
become
Next Level
authors.
Did you know that is one of my favorite things about you? You are able to say how long something will take, and then you actually make it happen in that time. Like, I don't have that. Like, what is that, and how do I get it?